God's Children are Little Broken Things by Arinze Ifeakandu.
I remember when I was still a teenager, like in my early teens, I would like a boy or write love letters, but I was still going to be like, God, why am I in love with this boy? Please change me, Lord Jesus. And like putting yourself through unnecessary guilt and unnecessary shame.
Yes.
And so when I had come out of all that, there was like a lot of rage.
This is our latest selection. It's the fourth selection from Chude's book club.
I have felt like people have always related to my stories, right? I had like friends who were at least, quite kind of homophobic the very first, my first encounter with them. And then they read some of my stories and they're like, why is this boy talking to this boy and telling him I love you? But then, I understand, why did this boy break up with him? I want to read the next one. When will you write the next one? You know what I mean? Like, so that, like, I've always had that sense that stories, at least when told honestly, will be able to reach the people who they need to reach.
A mentor of mine recommended it and said, it's a collection of queer stories, but it's not really about queerness. It's about the themes that are important to us as human beings, about being human.
And I think, like, with queerness, again, just generally, we have a very, like, warped thinking around sex. Hope that's changing a lot now. Back then when we were growing up, people were like, I don't have sex, but now everybody's out with their penises on Twitter.
Yes.
But
Arinze Ifeakandu is one of the most powerful Nigerian voices. I believe that if Achebe was alive and saw this and read it, he would give the same comments he gave about Chimamanda when she started her career, that she came almost fully made. The level of skill, the level of depth, the level of empathy, which is what marks true storytellers as far as I'm concerned, the level of insights, the exquisite beauty of the writing in this book blew me away.
I remember like the first draft of that story, I had sent it to a friend of mine, Bolanho, and he was like, when he sent his feedback, he was like, Arinze, I was going to say Nigerians are going to crucify you, but then I remembered you're an Igbo boy.
I remember after reading the first story, I was just listless, alarmed in the best way. The book just punched me with its truth. And I finished the first story, which I want to talk about, and I was just breathless. I'm very dramatic, but this is a real thing I did.
Yeah.
It was too much. I want to talk about that first story. It's a universal story. It's a universal book, but also an intensely Nigerian book.
There are people who needed to get like new information. Like I'm like, these people are not necessarily bad people, but they have been told a lot of rubbish in churches, and they are holding up to that rubbish, and they're like, no, we're not going to even listen to this new information.
Yes.
And so that for me was really a source of like sadness. And I think like instead of writing these stories, it was like a way of sort of like pushing
dealing with those complex emotions.
Yeah.
People actually think the title of this show is Let's Be Human Together. But this book really just goes deep into what makes us good and kind and complicated and fucked up and messy and beautiful. Welcome to Chude's book